Flow Riders, and welcome to the Flow. I am Doc Rock, along with my awesome co-host.
Hey everyone, it's Katie.
I almost got it. Gang, we are here, and we are here to show you everything you need to know about podcasting, but specifically video podcasting, because, oh man, times are changing, and I can't wait because I have been standing on this soapbox for quite a long time, and I'm starting to feel a little validated. Not 100%, but it is very much happening, and there's so many reasons why. If you have been sitting on the idea of starting a podcast, no better time than now. Especially if you've been sitting on the idea of starting a video podcast, even better. Mm-hmm. It's actually even better. I think one quick myth I would like to take off the table: it is easier to produce a video podcast than it is to do an audio podcast. I want to tell you that right now, and people would assume that's counterintuitive, but no. And a part of it is before, in the olden days, as we call it, I want to just say we need a date terminology like BM1 instead of BC. It's like before M1, yeah, totally get it. It was a pain in the butt. You needed a beefy computer. Post M1, anything will do. Right? Any modern M-based Apple will smoke a video podcast. And that's all the way from MacBook Air down. Now, if you're going to stream that podcast, I wouldn't necessarily get it Air. But as far as the editing and the production stuff of that nature, everything just works. I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. This new little Miss Minnie thing, whew, homegirl is quick. He's quick. She quick. Oh my God, it's so fast. And you can buy one now for $4.99. Like, really? What are we doing? Like, why are you still chasing hard stuff? So anyway, I just wanted to point that out. What are we talking about today, Kate?
All right, so I'm going to set the stage for everyone because I know probably most of you who are watching live or maybe listening later, you have been listening to us, I assume. And so you have all been in the world of Captivate, and that's your host. Or maybe you didn't listen to us and you have a different host. But I made a concerted effort when I started my personal podcast, the VHS Club, to sign up with a different podcast host so that I would be able to compare it against Captivate. And then I would be able to give you all an honest opinion on what makes Captivate way better. Short story, it is way, way better. But so I'm using Spotify still as my podcast host over on the VHS Club. And what I wanted to point out and talk about today is, if you have been using Spotify, or if you are just like in the world of Spotify in some way or another, you may have noticed that Spotify has started really blatantly changing its messaging. So back even, I think about a year ago, it used to actually be if you started a podcast using Spotify, you were actually using a tool called Anchor. And then Spotify changed the name from Anchor to Spotify for Podcasters. And now they are changing it from podcasters and all of their language, for podcasters, podcasting, podcast, to creators. And all now of the language that they have around their podcasting tools are all creator-based. And if you have been in the creator world, like many of us are in, you will notice that a lot of the features that they've been adding are basically YouTube features. You can now upload your YouTube thumbnail. There's a lot more features, and every email that they've been sending in the last, couple of months have all been like, hey, we're not just podcasters, we're creators, and we're creating in all these different spaces, and we're thinking video first, and here are all the different resources. And again, if you kind of go back in time to, as Doc was saying, if we kind of go back a little bit, Spotify was one of the only other platforms that was trying to compete with YouTube, as we saw this shift from, so again, if we remember our podcast history lesson that Doc has taken us through, right? We started in video, right? Podcasting started in video and then got kind of very audio focused, and then hit a point where it was back to being, actually video. And then they were separate, and now they're together. And so for a long time, it's been kind of YouTube, is the number one player, and then Spotify to a much, much lesser degree offers, the ability for you to upload your video podcast to this platform. So what I really want to talk about is how we, particularly those of us who are Ecamm customers who've been doing this video thing for a while, how we can remind ourselves of the important elements that go into creating for YouTube and how we can apply that to how we think about our podcast and our shows in general, even if we're not uploading it. Like, it should obviously be formatted and created for YouTube when you're putting it onto YouTube, and you should be doing that absolutely 100%. But I think we're now going to see a shift to all the other podcast players are going to start adding in features that are YouTube focused. So what does that mean for us as podcasters and now creators? So if we think a little bit bigger, and how can we apply some of those changes and take the most advantage out of these new features? Because A, we know how all of this works and we just need to remind ourselves. And B, like, if a company and a platform is spending time investing in a new feature, you want to be using that new feature because they're promoting it and doing it. So that's my long-winded description of this episode.
Don't get that. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's so funny how many people don't get when they say here is a new feature. Like, you should almost automatically start using it, because 9 times out of 10, yes, they're going to push that feature. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste this money. But I took a couple things. When you first said that you were going to set the scene, I thought you were going to say, in Fair Verona, where we lay our scene, ancient grudge.
I actually usually do. I have that memorized. Yeah. We're civil blood, make civil hands. Like,
civil blood, make civil hands. Doth there bury death. Oh my God, never mind. It's been high school. It's a long time ago. Anyway, so the thing is, so from way back when I was screaming and stuff, and I didn't have any inside knowledge or anything. It was just kind of a common sense situation that once Spotify went and bought the Jay Rogan show, I knew that was going to be a first test into the industry. They spent a grip into that industry. And the other thing that kind of set it off is that first podcast expo, no, not the right word, podcast movement, that first podcast movement after that deal happened, there was a lot of murmuring around the floor, and all of the audio guys were trying to protect their space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when you got the guys who've been sitting here running this thing for 15, 20 years, kind of, I wouldn't say scared, but definitely making strategic moves to try to remind you that audio is the best, I was like, there's a sign that something is a brew. So I started from that moment on going, if Spotify, they're going to have a hard time because nobody really understands, knows, or trusts them at that particular level. They had just come off of a debacle with the sort of Anchor platform and owning people's data because they just wrote a weird TOS. But I was like, if YouTube gets into this, it's over because they have all of the facilities in place. And 2 years later, YouTube was like, hey, we're going to do this thing called podcast. They moved Kai Chuck over to the director of podcasts and podcast-oriented things. They are also now, which I think is part of the deal, pushing heavily on the community side of YouTube because a lot of podcasts, it's important to have a community. If you look at Obit, Morbid, TCO, like, any of the myriad podcasts, there's whole communities and meetups and get-togethers in the whole 9 yards. So YouTube is building a more Discordian community platform into YouTube. And once they add that, they already had the major part of it down. And so, like I was discussing with the client yesterday, because I had a customer call. She was brand new to Ecamm and getting everything set up. Awesome lady. I said, the funny thing about YouTube, and I know that like your coaches are going to have you all over the map telling you what to focus on or whatever, but I'm going to tell you should just really focus on YouTube. And then she was like, it's funny you should say that. And I was like, why? She goes, oh, I just hired Daryl Eves as my YouTube coach. And I was like, well then, alrighty then. She went, whoom, like right up. And then she's like, I was like, yeah. I'm like, because YouTube does video first. Everybody else, YouTube is a garnish.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people can't wrap that around their head. Oh, LinkedIn, you got to do LinkedIn video. Yeah, but that's a garnish. And then Instagram video, garnish. TikTok, maybe the closest, but that would be like the fast food version. But YouTube has always been video. And so if you do your podcast there, you have so many beautiful things to go. And yeah, you can still pick Spotify if you want. But the main thing is now that YouTube is doing it, you definitely want to have a video in your podcast. I'm sorry. I'm just going to put the foot down.
No, I agree obviously with everything that Doc just said. What I really wanted to drive home to all of you, and I know we've said this a lot, but I think like this particular episode is the one where we really just need to say it again and maybe even repeat it. Start your show on YouTube. And I don't mean like begin there. I mean as you're working out your flow for your show. So like how you produce your show and how you actually get the episodes out there, put all of your energy and effort into formatting it and filling out all of the fields and checkboxes and doing all of the work for YouTube. And then just copy that over to your other podcast host and for the other podcast players. Do not do it the other way around. Do not do it differently than the two of them, because the other platforms, and Spotify is likely just the first of many, but the other podcast hosts and all of the other platforms out there are looking to YouTube as best in class. So YouTube hat on first, format and plan and build your process and your show release plan and your show notes and your graphics and the structure of your show, everything. Build it as a YouTube show first, and then that show, how it's built for YouTube, then gets duplicated to those other places next. Even if you're not doing it right now that way, just switch it to that way and then go forward. Because if you are doing it the other way around, then you're probably not optimizing the way you should be for YouTube, and so you will fail. And if you are doing completely different stuff, so you're setting it up one way for YouTube and one way for all of the audio only or the other podcast players, then you're A, doing double the amount of work for no reason, and B, you're probably not optimizing the way you need to for those other podcast players, because they are going to continue to make changes to mimic and to replicate the success that YouTube is seeing. So that's my mean American hat on, so that all of you know that these changes continue to show us that YouTube is top of the pack in this space, and you need to be thinking about that platform more than you are all the other different platforms and players. It doesn't mean that you need to be on all of them. It doesn't mean that you need to like make huge changes to your show. You need to be thinking about it, not just video first, but YouTube first. And then everything else is kind of a downriver from that that intention.
Correct. And so Eden kind of points out, like YouTube just makes the most sense. And yes, it does. And for me, the number one thing that I keep sticking with is they auto transcribe every piece of video that you put up. And when they go to index data, they index their data first, right? And so if you put it on a platform, that data, that part of it is pseudo theirs, right? So when you go to do a search right now, if I were to do a search on hanging up wallpaper, the first couple of answers are going to be the AI generated ones, which is pulling from articles that already exist. And then there's going to be either a video that takes you directly to the section that answers the question that you want, because that way you'll remain a Google search user because you get the answer that you want. And then secondarily, it'll be people always ask. So I just want you to dig into gold, right? So if your topic of your show was the Philadelphia 76ers basketball, and you were to search in Philadelphia 76ers basketball defense, the first answer would be, that's a myth. They're not the Celtics. Hi, Eden. No, but it would say people also ask. And then it'd be like, okay, who's the defensive coach, or what are the statistics, and, whatever. So that will give you topics for your show. Like the people always, always, the people also ask, yo, that is like farming gold for your show because YouTube is, I mean, not YouTube, Google is looking for the answers to those questions. And so when you put out a fresh video that you had properly transcribed via whatever your transcription service is, and you replace the automatic with the one that you had properly done, it's going to get indexed and it will land there. Trust you me, it will land there. So that's just like free farming eyeballs and good ideas. And so, yeah, YouTube does make the most sense. Eden is right. I can't believe I said that out loud. Her choice of basketball team's horrible, but the question is right.
I wanna go back up to because Brandy Joe asked a really great question in the chat, which is actually like really the structure of this episode. So we can use this kind of as our way of going through here. So Brandy says, what would you say the top 5 essentials of knowing YouTube are as it relates to podcasting? So I'm going to kick off with what I think is the first, and then Doc, I'm sure, has all of them. But you can give a second and we can kind of go through these because Joel
just got me because he said farming gold or mining gold. Okay, Joe, you know what I meant, mining gold.
Doc farms gold. You all might mine gold, but Doc is farming gold. All right, I would say if you are like brand new to this, either like you haven't started your podcast yet, or you're maybe you're not leveraging YouTube at all, or you're leveraging it but you're like, oh crumb, I'm not probably doing it properly. The first thing that I would start off with is thinking through the most searchable title and YouTube description. So you want to be thinking about this as like, what is the most important thing you said in the episode, or if you're live streaming it like what we do, what is the most important thing you're going to say in the episode? Thinking about it again with your YouTube, your Google hat on, what is like the most eye-catching thing that you can say in that title, in that description? Pro tip. This is where AI shines. And I have been spending the last like couple of weeks getting real good at this. There are like 85 million tools that you can use. You can just use ChatGPT. There are so many different ways to do this, but start really thinking about, does the title of your episode make sense from a catches attention and searchability standpoint? So if you're right now have your episode as like, here's an example. So if my episode was the VHS Club podcast reviews Sandlot episode 72, right? That may not be the best possible name for my episode. That might be really good if I'm thinking about it as like a podcast episode, but it may not be the best use case for YouTube. So thinking through those fields, and then obviously mixing that with like, categorization, tags, things like that can also go into YouTube. Those are the best points. And then you're going to take that same title and description, and that is what's going to become your show title and your show notes over on the podcast player. You might add a couple of extra things to it, like maybe you want, a bulleted list of what you talk about. Maybe you want chapters or timestamps or whatever, but really like think through what is that main content piece. And like the cool thing about these platforms is like you can change it.
Yes,
you can start with that and then be like, oh, actually, like that wasn't working as well, and go back in and change it in both places. So, and Eden is saying this. I think it's Eden's account is saying this. Sometimes I post a video and the description is too detailed and it gets no views. But if I change it to something more broad, the views go way up. Yeah, play with that and see, what makes the most sense.
The description is probably not controlling your views per se. The description does help with search information. So in a way, you technically want to be as detailed as possible. The thing that's going to cause you to get a random view that you weren't going to get, and this is what everybody sleeps on, is title and thumbnail. Okay, I need to say that again and again and again. And I just made a video about this. See, it's funny. You guys are in trouble because I just spit out 20 videos. So yeah, I have just made a video on this. Two things. The title and the thumbnail are super important because it's just like a book cover. And I was the super anti-clickbait thumbnail title person. And I got to take it back. It works. It works. Not because I asked my community, and they said it's only clickbait if the video doesn't deliver. if you say something provocative in the title, oh, there she goes. She said it was title. Okay, she's correct.
Yeah.
If you say something provocative in the title and you say something provocative or create the curiosity gap with the thumbnail, you will click on it. So I want to challenge you the next time you're couch surfing YouTube, which I do. I don't know if you guys do this. If you couch surf YouTube, please throw a thumbs up in the chat because I couch surf YouTube. I have a big old TV, remote, and sit there and I watch all you guys. Also, if you just happen to just watch YouTube for relaxation stage or you watching on your phone, I suggest you to pull out an Apple Notes or a notepad and make a note of the thumbnails that triggered your eye. If you can't do it then, at the end of the week on Sunday, when you're doing your weekly review, I want you to go check your history in YouTube and look at what thumbnails are catching you. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're like me and I watch videos that's none of my business. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so I am a YouTube studier, right? I got to pull up one real quick just to make it make sense. I'm a YouTube studier. So I'm in here and I'm looking at some videos that came up, something that I probably never would have watched. And I'm looking for, there's this one where the guy is talking about growing vegetables in his backyard. I don't have a backyard, but the thumbnail was intriguing. And he was talking about how you can grow certain things in plastic bags in the backyard. And I'm like, okay, I don't have a backyard, but I have what you guys call a balcony. We call it, Chris and I call it a lanai. I could grow some garlic in the bag and I could grow some ginger in the bag because in Hawaii, ginger is $6 a hand, which is stupid because it's from here. So I don't understand. So, yeah, it's like, I could grow that. I'm used to growing things in college. So, you check out what thumbnails caught your eye. What is it about that thumbnail that caught your eye? Was it design? Was it the intrigue? 9 times out of 10, it's the curiosity gap. So when you catch yourself, like, why did I click on that? That's what you should be designing for. And then same with titles. If you see titles that catch your eye, that's what you should click. That's what you should design for. So I did recently make a video on thumbnails. If you're curious, go check it out. I do thumbnail makeovers on my show all the time. To me, it's a pet peeve of mine because I watch really good videos that deserve way more eyeballs, and I know the reason why nobody clicked it is the thumbnail is hot trash. So
yeah, and look,
I'm like, please, I will help you.
I will say 2 follow-up things to that. We are saying that as a show, and even in my personal stuff, we need a lot of YouTube thumbnail work. So that is on our list and checklist. And the second thing I will say is, so don't use ours as examples. We're learning there with you. Thumbnails go.
In my video, I say my company doesn't listen to me because I know the best thumbnail advice, but they won't listen to me because they insist on putting too much words on the thumbnail. 3 to 5 words.
We hear you. We need to make some changes to it. And then the other thing I will say is that thumbnails was actually one of the things that Spotify just added in. So every video prior to this, we've been telling you that if you're sharing your podcast out through any of those podcast hosts, you need a completely different sized and formatted graphic, right? You need the square graphic. That's what's going to show up in all these different places. Spotify is now allowing you to upload a thumbnail. They're calling it a thumbnail which is sized to YouTube thumbnail size, and then also a square version. So again, like they are showing you, if you are paying attention, what are the things that they think as not YouTube are the most compelling and exciting points of YouTube, and thumbnail is there. So again, title, description, thumbnail, right? Like these are the things that you should be starting with. So
I'm laughing at Kenya because yes, they are. In my stream like a week ago, I brought your thumbnails up because they're cute, but there's I'll tell you why. I specifically pointed out your thumbnails in one of my things because they're your cardinal sin. Please get at me. I will help you. Anyway,
I'm there with you, Kenya.
the reason why I say it was super funny, we all know who is the king of no, we're going to keep it audio, and Libsyn allows you to put up 16 by 9, 19, 20 by 1080 thumbnails for like the last 6 months. So I was like, I wasn't going to tease him because that's my buddy, but I'm like, it's funny. You know what I mean? Okay, one last thing that's super important while we're talking about thumbnails. It's very important for those of you who are doing this for your podcast. Please don't make your title and your thumbnail say the same thing. And again, since it's our stuff, I can pick on it. In my video, I mentioned the video for Tatiana's last show that she did on our program because the title and thumbnail are exactly the same. That's not helping you. The goal is think of this from a movie standpoint, right? The title of the movie is in the poster, but there's a lot of information in the poster. You know, they just you put on the thumbnail that you see on Netflix, it's just an intriguing image and the title. They don't get into all of the information that's on the poster because it's kind of not necessary, right? By that time, you just want to see the thumbnail and make you stop. And even, there you go, you can take some tips from Netflix, although it's a different platform. You could take some tips from Netflix or whatever you watch and like, what are these thumbnails that are making you just grab it? Like what pulled your eye to this thumbnail? 9 times out of 10, big, gigantic words and short words. It's Alive. That's a thumbnail. It's Alive, a horror movie about a baby that was possessed by the devil and then came through and tried to kill the whole family. And then Aunt Gladys had called an exorcist. And that's not the thumbnail, people. Like you're doing that because you don't trust in your ability to attract the attention. But what you want to do is if you tell me everything, I don't need to click it. But if you posit a intriguing question, my brain cannot handle the open loop. I'm a Virgo, Katie's a Virgo, but turns out it ain't just us. All humans cannot stand an open loop. And it's the reason why the Law and Order will get your favorite detective in trouble on the last episode and then disappear for 6 months. Or the vampires in True Blood
the cliffhanger,
will bite somebody and then you'll be like, what the? And it's like, that was the season finale. See y'all. What the mother? And George R. Martin, I'm looking at you, you turd. I need you to finish these books up, okay? Because I know you're getting old.
That's a great way to think about it, though. Actually, let's all. And I am. This is literally on my to-do list is to get better at this going forward and to start applying some of these. But what Doc just said, like if we all think about our thumbnails as a visual cliffhanger for our episode. So really think about it. And then again, the other thing I have on my to-do list, Kenya, if this helps, or anyone else that's listening or watching, there are tools out there that I think are really helpful to leverage. And one of them, and there might be others that are, better or that you have already or that you like more, but TubeBuddy, for an example, will actually do a A/B test of your YouTube
built into
thumbnail.
YouTube now.
So there you go. So it's built into YouTube. So then none of us have any excuses. If you're using YouTube, it's built in. Try it. Create 2 different ones. One that you think that is awesome, and another one that was a recommendation from a friend or whatever you're in a style. Put them both in there and let the data speak for itself to see what works, and then double down on what works. And again, don't be afraid to apply that to your audio podcast or to your video podcast that's not out on YouTube. Apply what you learn, use the power of YouTube, take those learnings, duplicate that out to everywhere else, because YouTube is going to give you the best possible results, learnings, traffic, analytic, all of that then you can use to make better decisions for all the other platforms that don't offer you all of those details or are charging you an arm and leg for it. So use that data and apply that to your entire show.
So here's a prime example. Today's title, A New Frontier, Why Every Podcaster Needs to Know YouTube. That's actually pretty good. That is a good cliff.
Shout out to Cap Show.
That is a good cliffhanger type of thing. It's a curiosity thing. But if you look at titles and thumbnails, they're even more bold than that. It's make these changes to your podcast now or die. Yeah. That's clickbaity, but that actually works too. Or fail. You can just say fail if you don't want to be that, person. It is actually kind of crazy. I looked at a show the other day that I didn't normally watch, and come to find out something I hadn't even noticed, but in Football Round, like the thing that makes Football Round so exciting was we grew up in the era of these really, really amazing strikers, right? The guys that score the goals. That position almost doesn't exist anymore. In order to compete with the fact that you had really amazing strikers, you started getting other people to be that quote unquote striker. The best goal scorers in the world, Ronaldo and Messi, they're technically not strikers, right? So it's funny. And I was like, I didn't even realize that. And the game switched sort of in front of our eye, but that thumbnail caught my attention. Because like, what do you mean there's no strikers? There's so many goals. But they're not coming from strikers. They're coming from midfielders and wingers. And it's like, oh, you're kind of right. So to put that in American sense or in a basketball sense, what if all of a sudden the number one rushing quarterback, the number one rushing touchdowns is always a quarterback instead of a running back? Or in basketball, if the number one free throw shooter is like the Celtics, Porzingis, because he's a center, and 7-foot dudes ain't supposed to hit 3-pointers like we do, Eden. Anyway, so that's how you build an intrigue. That's how you push something that's going to be like, wait a minute, I didn't think of that. So it can either be just really curiosity or make you think. There's a thing known as
ask a controversial question. That's
controversial question. So there's controversy, there's intrigue, there's FOMO, there's scarcity, there's the question. Always do questions. Questions are good. The curiosity, I was showing that to Yolanda when I was doing her thumbnails this week. I was showing her that the curiosity gap. So she had like the GM and the coach of the Ravens, like who's to blame for their sort of current situation. And so she had this full title. And I was like, no, blame, question mark, those two idiots, 2 arrows in the story. You want to write who's to blame. You want to put all of this extra accoutrement, but all you needed was the word blame, question mark, and those 2 faces. And your brain can do the rest. And that's the part that's so hard because it's really, really hard for people to make it, it's really, really hard to let go of wanting to say everything.
True. And you know what? And again, maybe this is just like the headspace that I'm in right now. But if even if you have like a free or lower level version of any of these different AI tools. So for example, I've been treating ChatGPT as my intern, where I'm like, hey, ChatGPT, Doc and I are doing this episode of The Flow, and which is our video podcast. And we know that our thumbnails suck. And I want to visually show something controversial about this topic on the thumbnail so it attaches attention. Here's the transcript of my video. And I just literally upload the like Google Doc or the Word doc version of the transcript. You know what? It gives you a ton of ideas. And then if you're like, oh, I don't know if that one will work. Like, what about this one? Can I get some more ideas there? It'll give you more ideas. It will answer all of those questions like the intern you never knew you needed. And it will, I kid you not, because I've been doing it for the last couple of weeks here. It will spark all kinds of thoughts and ideas that you didn't know you had. Where before that, I'd be sitting there going, I'm just checking boxes. I need to get the thumbnail done. I need to get this done. I need to get that done. This is stopping and saying, okay, but I want to do this properly. And I need some brainstorming time and some suggestions. Throw that to the robots. Let the robots take that and give you ideas. Cause I kid you not, like it will make a big difference. And, so again, if we're trying to get to 5, I would say the first 3: title, description, YouTube, thumbnail, thinking through thumbnail and graphics. And then I guess like probably 4 would be like curating and sorting your content. So for, that could be on YouTube, playlists, tags, like all of those kinds of things. So like, for example, so again, I'm doing this so that you can get a good understanding because it's different than the format that we do for this show. But for my other show, I have the YouTube podcast playlist, which is every single one of my episodes. That's on YouTube. You can find any of the full episodes. They sit there. But I'm reviewing movies from the 80s, 90s, and today, quotation marks. So I have like a playlist on YouTube that is just 90s movies reviews. I have a playlist on YouTube that is 80s movies reviews. And then I have a playlist that's like fun facts, which are all vertical videos that are short little clips that I pull from, from the episodes, or, so I've done some additional curating and sorting. Can I apply that to the podcast host and players? Not yet, but I might be able to, but it's benefiting me on YouTube right now. And it will be super easy for me to pull that over to my podcast host if and when they do get around to adding that kind of stuff. It's also how I'm thinking about tags for all those episodes, right? So I'm thinking like big picture down. I'm thinking about including tags that are related to the fact that it's a podcast, it's a video podcast. We're talking about movies. We're talking about old movies. We're talking about nostalgic movies. Now I'm talking about 90s movies, this specific 90s movie. These are the actors in the 90s. That's how I'm thinking about tags and about sorting and curating. And again, I use all of the AI tools to double check my work, to make sure I'm not missing anything, to give me suggestions where my mind is blank. Like this, we live in a time where this used to take a lot of time with a lot of people. And now me and my intern, Chad, are doing it in like seconds more effectively than I could ever do it by myself.
I want to answer a question that Kenya asked. Listen, Kenya, I'm sorry. I keep saying Kenya because that's one of our creators, and she's two E's. But I know it's Kenya because I have a niece, Kenya. So anyway,
sorry about that. Me too.
My brain keeps wanting to do the two E's because I literally talk to Kenya Kelly every freaking day of my life. Like I talk to her every day. So anyway, she asked the question: should the title of the episode go in the thumbnail, or just the title? Wait, let me get the question right. I lost it in my head. I had it. Anyway, the answer is neither. Where'd it go? I lost it. I lost the question. Anyway, the question was somewhere in the neighborhood about putting the title in the thumbnail, and the answer is you do not want to put the title in the thumbnail. You want to add an intrigue, but that's my thing is like, what we have been doing from the business of this show, because it's not really about growing our YouTube audience. It's about providing for the audience that happens, right? We technically have an audience already. But then I think Katie and I both realize from a marketing standpoint, if someone finds our content on YouTube that is primarily for the users, you might be brand new to Ecamm. Like, I like this Ecamm stuff. I like these people. I like this audience. I like the people that keep showing up. Maybe let me go buy this software. So there's somebody in the chat right now that bought Ecamm not from any other video, but they happen to watch one of ours and then fell in love with the crew. And then once you realize our crew is fun, then you here. You ain't going nowhere. You are stuck with us. Saeed don't even have a Mac, I don't think. He just hangs out with us. So yeah, it says, does the title of the show go on the thumbnail or just the title of the episode? To me, neither. I put a provocative, intriguing question on the thumbnail. So I saw this video the other day, and it's just a really good thumbnail. It's just her face. She's in the middle of a talking shot. Now, I personally don't like taking shots out of the video, but that's a different story. But her thumbnail only had 2 words on there: start living. And I'm like, here's somebody that thinks the way I think. Let me just watch this video and see what it's about. And it was a very good video. And she's talking about this book, which now I'm intrigued to read. And it was a book about a hospice nurse who interviewed centenarians on their, they're 100 years old. It's like, what are their regrets? And I know every single one of us in this chat, I heard it a couple times today. There's things that we say in the chat or we do, and it's like, yo, you're going to be looking back later going, I should have did that harder, right? I should have did that harder. And I never want to be in that position. So that book has me curious, but I only clicked on the thumbnail just from the calming look on her face and just 2 words: start living. That's it. And I consider myself a heavily living person. Like I'm an in the moment type of dude, but I was still intrigued. So that's why you didn't want to put, here is a review of the book by said author, title of the book. No, I can go to Amazon and look at that in the bottom of the page.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean by that. Oh,
Exactly.
Kenya knows Kenya. Okay. See, it's a small KK world out here.
You're all gonna make sure that I never get that right again. I love it.
I know, right? Now you just twisted it harder.
I mean, and sometimes, and we've said this on this show and other shows, a ton of times. I'm a dreadful overthinker, and so there was this time pretty recently, actually. So shout out to my friend Brian. He works over at Libsyn and also is a podcaster. I met him in real life at Pod Fest, I believe.
Yeah, or Expo, both of them. But Brian's a lovely human.
Yeah, one of them, but I think it was at Podfest. And I was talking to him about my show. He has a movie podcast for fun, and then he does a bunch of work for Libsyn. I have my movie podcast for fun, and I do a bunch of work for Ecamm. And I was telling him that I was trying to make updates, and I didn't like visually like how the VHS Club was showing up on my podcast host, and it wasn't really compelling. And I was like, tried to brand it so that it stood out and looked different and whatever. And he was like, you don't have the movie boxes on your graphics. I was like, yeah, well, but I have like my logo and like I have the name of it, whatever. He was like, just put the VHS cover on your picture, like on your thumbnail. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. Like in my mind, I was like, well, I've got to brand it. It needs to look professional. I need to be on it. I saw someone saying like, I like to be on it. That's my toxic trait. Same, like, right? Like I was like, well, it's a personality show. It's about me and my best friend. Like we need to be on it. And like, nah, like people want to see, like people are listening to the episode about the movie that they like. Maybe they're staying and listening to more because of me and my friend, but really like they're finding it. And that's the connection point, right? So like all I needed to do for that show was literally just show a VHS box of the movie that I was talking about. So like it again, like it might be that you're overthinking
and
it.
Nostalgic, right?
Yeah. It might be that you're underthinking it. Like, so again, there's no text on that one. That like there's literally just I think the YouTube thumbnail is bigger and a little bit more detailed, but the like square version of it is just the VHS cover, right?
That is so like good.
Right. So just think about it a little bit, because and again, like I'm just trying to get a little bit better. We should all just be trying to get a little 1%. Bit better. So like solving it does not mean I have to go back and like fix every single one of the 900 episodes I've done. Like if you want to, great. You don't have to. Just go forward. Just go forward and get better and try to make those changes. So it's because it's changing so fast out there. Like you're always going to have to make these little tweaks and changes going forward. So
you just said something that is so freaking key. Just a little bit better. And I think very important, figure out what success looks like for you. Please do not get caught in the trap of if 10,000 people ain't listening, my podcast is failing. Because I know that for us, we don't get massive numbers on our titles and our thumbnails, or I'm sorry, that's not the word I was looking for. We don't get massive clicks on our videos, but we get emails from people like, oh my God, I needed that. I was trying to do this show and now I figured my show out and my show is so good and blah, blah, blah. Those are the wins, right? We have a whole section in Slack for all of the people that send us nice comments. We also have a whole section in Slack for people who send us heinous hatred. So we know who you are. No, I'm just joking.
We don't actually. We only have a wins and a happy customers.
I'm joking, absolutely joking. But yeah, and to Saeed's point, this is so funny. I had to bring this up, Saeed, because you should always tell stories in your podcast. I had a teacher when I was in college, and she used to give us those really dumb things that they do when you're older teachers. I don't think they do that anymore. But she's like, okay, you guys got to write this, 3,000 word paper about this subject matter. And I would constantly turn in like 2,000 words. And then she'd be like, this isn't long enough. And I go, did you read it? And she's like, no, I could just tell it short. I go, read it. And if I did not nail the point in those 2,000 words, I'll take the F. How about that? There's the gamble. If you read it and I didn't cover the paper, I'll take the F. But if you read it and I covered the paper, why do I need to type in 1,000 extra words? And that's why people start their sentences with, and moreover, therefore, thus, and then. And I don't talk like that, so I ain't writing like that. Like, it is really stupid. And you make it work harder for you for no reason. All you need to tell us to do is write this paper and make sure these points are covered. So, and after about 3 papers, she stopped messing with me. Because it's just stupid. You're 100% right, Saeed. Like we used to have those weird things. I think teachers nowadays don't do that because they realize that's not beneficial once you become in the workplace. But I think in the older workplaces, being able to say, I wrote this 1,000-page thing in the journal of, Ennis Lobby, whatever, that was kind of, academia nuts and bragging rights, but it doesn't work like that in the real space. So I think they made that go away. One last thing I want to say, you mentioned about ChatGPT. Or I like Claude when it comes to writing, but they're both
Claude,
great. Fantastic. Don't pick on one. I sent this into Katie and Luis and Paul in the Flow channel. But one thing you could do when you're trying to brainstorm is there is an old school exercise from make a list A to Z on a piece of paper and write a single word about your subject matter A to Z down the paper, right? So if Eden is doing fantasy basketball, she would write fantasy basketball and then she'd make a list A to Z and then write I don't know what the word is. I can't even, because I don't play fantasy basketball. We get the D, draft choices, So anyways, you run that down. If you don't have the ability to do that, you know who does? Dear Chad, I need to make an A to Z brainstorming list about this topic. And let me read the prompt because I'm over here trying to do it out of my head and I have it on a hotkey. So it does work. I will read you the prompt. And then if you guys want to, I can send it to you. I've actually made it cuter than it really was. But here, I use us as an example. Generate a detailed A to Z analysis for podcasting where each letter represents a key concept. Each entry follows a format, letter equals concept, and all entries directly relate to podcasting, specifically video podcasting. Then always give them an example. Example, A equals concept, B equals concept, and continue through Z. And then you give them the topic, you give them the target audience. The target audience is, podcasting and beginning podcasters, and the purpose is podcast guidance and best practices. That was the prompt that I originally stole from this email list that I get from Dickie and Cole. But I took that into the prompt improver, which is on the API page of ChatGPT and in the projects page of Claude. And so you give it a prompt improver, and it gave me a prompt that I can't read to you because it's way longer and way more detailed. But if you want, just send us an email and I'll find a way to get it to you. But it's incredible. And so even
the robots are getting 1% better.
Yeah, even the robots are getting better, right? And they will help you write. If you think, I don't know how to write prompts, you can go to the prompt improver section of any of these guys, and there's tutorials all over YouTube on how to find it. And you can legit just go in and say, help me improve this podcast. And the other one, which I should do real quick because I did it the other day, I'll show you, is you can just go on your phone, right? And pull up the old Chat GPT on your phone and then hit the little speaker box, wait for the blue dot. Hey, Chat, I have a question. I need you to give me a bunch of topics about podcasting A through Z. So in other words, take a key concept about podcasting, specifically video podcasting, and make me a brainstorming list of key topics with each letter A through Z.
All right, let's dive into the A to Z of video podcasting. A, audio quality, the foundation of any good podcast. B, branding, creating a strong identity for your video podcast. C, camera setup, choosing the right equipment for your
Okay, that's good. One question. Can you do it in Mandarin for Eden?
好的，那我们用中文来看看视频播客的 A 到 Z 吧。A. 腌制，任何优质播客的基础。B.
What's your excuse?
Game over.
What is your excuse? I just threw an iPhone 16 across the room to prove a point. What is your excuse?
Yeah. We got really off. Well, not. I shouldn't say.
No, it's good. It's good.
I think we're.
Eden is like, I'm screaming. Hey, Mary Lou.
I do.
Of the year.
I just want to remind everyone that, like, again, there are so many different ways to do this. So like here we are, and actually Doc's new show with Mary Lou is like a great like literal show as an example of this. Doc, the way that Doc thinks about this, it like is way more like technical and nuanced than how I think about it. But we're both doing.
You can say crazy. It's cool.
But we're both doing the same thing. No, so like I really want to say like Doc just showed you how like a non-techie, and he'll hate that I use that word, but like if I think of myself for a moment as a non-techie person, I can still do this if I think about these tools as like people I'm typing to or talking to. Hey, Doc, I really need some ideas about blah, 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 blah. Talk to the tools that way if that's how you can get going. And that like, if I couldn't get my head around like, I was thinking way too much and doing way too much work to try to find like the best possible prompts to get the best possible content. You know what I wasn't doing? Using the tools to get the content I needed. So I stopped doing that. And now I'm just talking to them as if they are people in the room with me, either talking like Doc just did into my phone or typing because I'm really fast at typing. I'll just type the questions as if I would type them to Doc or to Caleb or to my husband or to whoever else, like imaginary person, doesn't matter. But you will get answers that way. And you can always say, nope, not that. I actually need this thing. And then just explain a little bit further. It will help be a sounding board for you. And even the practice of just doing that is going to give you better content for YouTube, for your podcast, for brainstorming and ideation. But use that content, fill out all of the boxes, start with all the boxes on YouTube, and then take that information and put that into the other platforms. But if you do that, you will see success. It is just a proven fact at this point. You will get there. So
I agree with Paul. Same here. The reason why I picked Chad over just calling it ChatGPT is number one, ChatGPT, you got to say it all the time and it becomes too long. I love that Claude is only a single name, but it's because it's easier to talk to Chad as a person, even though Chad is Juniper. And as Joe said, how is Kenya inside my phone? I picked Juniper because she sounded like one of my family members. She sounded like my niece. But yeah, it's really helpful. And you can do things like have her ask you, it depends on whether you set it for male or female. I set it for Juniper because, again, it just reminds me of talking to a family member. You can have it ask you questions. So it's like, ask me questions to help me nail down this topic I want to talk about, but I want to make sure that I have a general grasp of what people might say. So pretend you're an audience member for my show about this. Ask me questions and related to this to help me formalize my next episode. And she will interview you. And then you can interrupt her answers. You can, as you saw, have her switch into any multiple languages. Like it's too good now. It's really too good now. And yeah, you don't have to take what it says verbatim, but a lot of times, just as you would say, Joel call up Kenya and say, Kenya, I got an idea. And you run it by Kenya. Kenya's like, okay, cool. But maybe you should do this, this, and this. You'll get a similar thing. It won't be as good as talking to Kenya, but maybe you can't wake her up when you have this idea at like 3:00 in the morning because she would slap you. So you can just ask the phone. And then later on, you can go back and ask her and even compare the answers. And it'd be really hilarious. You'd be like, wow, you guys said the same thing because you had the bones for what you need to talk about already there. You just needed help getting past it. So these sounding boards is really good. Chatina. I like Chatina. Does she have to go dress and go do 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 do? Dun, dun, dun. Sorry. I have musical Tourette's. My bad. Big wheel,
all right, I want to
burning. Sorry.
We just quickly scroll through before we wrap to make sure that, because I think that there was one other comment or question, sorry, rather, that I saw further up here.
Any thoughts on generated thumbnails? Yeah, I'm not doing that. That was a good one, Saeed.
It's worth keeping an eye on. I think that's going to be like a personal preference and probably fit into some of your branding as well. Like I've seen people do it really well that fits their brand, but I've seen some people where it doesn't make sense and it doesn't look good. So people first. Think about the people first. Is there an audio pen?
Yeah,
sorry,
that's
go ahead.
Chris. I was going to answer Chris's question.
Go for
Chris, the real answer is we do not touch the audio in any way, shape, or form unless you use echo cancellation. So what you get in Ecamm is a raw feed from your people. If your people are sending you rubbish, then yeah, you might want to have them send you a separate audio recording. I have do it for safety. And I don't think I've ever had to use the safety track. I think Luis has had to use it maybe twice. For the most part, we just take the audio as it is here. Really, we've had to definitely do the video because you live where I live, so you know what the internet is like here. Chris lives literally about 4.5 blocks away from me, closer to Katie's house. And then Katie has horrible internet at the office, not so bad at home. So we've definitely had to send the video situation. But I will tell you this, and Luis and I talked about this morning. For right now, if you know the person has a sketchy internet, definitely put them on EFZ/Ecamm for Zoom. Mm-hmm. Zoom does a much better job of mitigating the low bandwidth than the other side of Ecamm, which is interview feature. They're ostensibly the same, but Zoom just has so much data and research and a whole entire team based off of getting that. And the last thing that I want to add to that, Chris, a lot of us nerds camp really hard on the 4Ks and the 720s and the 1080s, and it is my fault because I came here from broadcast and I started that mess. But I can guarantee you I have watched tons of podcasts that are at 360 because I'm looking at the face for context, but they're not really showing you anything. You see my face and you seen Katie's face for the last 59 minutes. You know exactly what we look like. Katie's much better. Sorry. That's the way my mama can't fix that. But we're just here for context and we're here for connection. So it's people kind of rage hard on that and it doesn't matter. Content matters. Like you will watch an old flick from 1920s if it's good. You'll watch Citizen Kane and be intrigued. Well, if you're of a certain literary skill, you'll watch that, no problem. But you could go to a multi-billion-dollar piece of trash like Waterworld and be like, really though, what in the exact hang was that? There you go. So don't stress out. Just record the content, make it good, answer people's questions, solve problems, make folks happy. That's all you got to do.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good point to end on. Let's wrap.
And Chris, you ain't answered my question about doing coffee on Sunday, you jerk.
Oh, wait, before we wrap, because I've been adding this in because we talked last week about audience engagement. And so now Luis, I noticed Luis has it here, but if you look up this way, see, if you're watching us on video, there is a QR code up here. If you scan that QR code and you type in podcast course, that's an instant connection to, if you type in $1 million, if you type in podcast course, 2 words, 1 word, doesn't matter. That will give you a link to sign up for our free podcast course so you can learn more about video podcasting and dive deeper on a lot of these topics and content. It'll also connect you directly to our Instagram inbox so you can start a conversation with us if you have a question we didn't answer or you think of something later. It's just a really great way to connect with us so that we can immediately reach back and answer you and share some resources with you. So take advantage of that. If you're like, how do you do that? I'd love to be able to do that myself. We're using a tool called Stampede Social. And if you're part of the Ecamm fam, there's a really amazing discount as well. So again, if you want that discount or you want to learn more about it, just type that into the Instagram DM to us and we'll send that over to you. But yeah.
Yo, and then Jill shows up at the end.
Jill, you're late.
Dang it. All right, guys, want to remind you that you can find out everything you need to find out about the flow at flow.ecamm.com. That's FLOWECA, 2 M's.com. Come through. It'll help you connect to the podcast. You can ask us questions, leave us voicemails, like the whole 9 yards. Also, a quick reminder that we do this on Captivate. We absolutely love Captivate because it is a growth-centric platform, and just give it a try. Go to captivate.fm. You can tell them that we've seen you. And no, Kenya, there's no ducks today. Oh my God, that's too funny. Kenya was ready for the ducks. There's no ducks today. So go ahead and check it out again at captivate.fm and use the code no ducks. No, I'm joking. Just
No,
tell them
no.
Pecan
No code,
Fam
no
sent
code.
you. Oh my God. Yo, this was a really good show, Katie. I thank you for finding that gem when you got the email from Spotify, because I think it's something that, a lot of people just need to dive into. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help. So if you guys got questions in any way, shape, or form, come through. And then, if you would like to stay here and learn about podcasting, I'm going to do my show in like 10 minutes with me and Mary Lou. She's probably doing her hair. I don't have no hair. So
And it's a perfect follow-up, because as Spotify has now told us, none of us are podcasters anymore. We're all creators. So if you're a creator and you need to get unstuck, Creators Unstuck is the place to do it. So stay on the line. You've all been promoted from podcasters to creators, and now we're here to help you.
Oh my God. Joel said, no ducks, I need a refund.
Oh, no ducks today. Maybe ducks next week.
We
People
forgot
like
to give Joel, Anna said his name is Joel, so we forgot to change his name. It's forever Joel because of Anna. So there's that.
That's his Spanish name.
Yes. Thank you guys. This has been absolutely incredible. Thank you, Louise, for doing the productions in the background. And then, see you guys next week.
See you next week.
Flow Riders, out.
Out.